Tyler Herro and Luka Doncic were both named Conference Players of the Week for the previous week. I want to talk about how Luka Doncic is still dominating despite having a slow start to the season, and how Tyler Herro is on the brink of his first All-Star season. But before we get started, if you guys like the content, you know what to do. Sub to the channel. We're trying to hit 2K by the end of the year. We have just about 2 weeks to do it, but I think we can get it. Anyways, let's dive into the play of Tyler Herro. Tyler Herro went about 24, 6, and 5. The Miami Heat were 3 and 1, with Herro having two 30-point performances, with one of those performances being against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So far, he has had a career year when it comes to his points per game, his assists, his three-pointers made, his three-point percentage, his player efficiency rating, and his value over replacement player. And what's crazy is he's doing all of this while maintaining the exact same usage rate from previous seasons, meaning that Herro is just being more efficient without needing more touches. And the biggest reason as to why Herro has been so dominant this year has come down to the fact that he has basically cut the mid-range shot out of his arsenal. Last season, 26% of all of his shots came between 10 feet from the rim up to the three-point line. This year, at that same range, he is down to just 6%. That is a 20% drop in the mark from mid-range, meaning that he is focusing more on taking efficient shots either at the rim or from three. And as I mentioned, he is already having a career year from three, shooting nearly 43%, which is absolutely ridiculous given that he's making about 4 per game. At the rim, he has kept the same mark from years past, being a near 70% finisher, although Herro still has a long way to go when it comes to slashing, but the fact that he's attacking the rim more and keeping it at the same rate is a very good mark for him. And when it comes to talking about his three-ball game, 2 things to note is that he is shooting nearly 50% when it comes to open shots, and on all open shots, he has an incredible 71% effective field goal percentage. But it's not just his scoring from shooting and from slashing that we're seeing, but we are seeing a huge jump when it comes to Herro's efficiency to run the pick and roll. Now, PPP stands for points per possession. For most of his career, Tyler Herro was sitting around 0.8 to 0.9 points per possession for the pick and roll, which is average to slightly above average. For reference, this year, the average pick and roll points per possession is about 0.85 for someone like Jared McCain. This year, Tyler Herro is having a record year when it comes to points per possession on the pick and roll, producing over 1 point per possession, which doesn't sound like a lot until you hear that's in the 78th percentile of the entire league, and that puts him at 20th in the entire league when it comes to running the pick and roll. And Herro's efficiency doesn't just go with the pick and roll, but it goes in with other kinds of play types as well, including handoffs, in transition, and on spot-up plays, meaning just across the court, he is being more efficient, and like I said, he is not taking any more shots than compared to last year. And I think this comes down to a few things. First off, in my opinion, Herro looks stronger this year than he does compared to other years. Just being able to take contact and give it out just makes him a little bit better of a slasher, and obviously it's paying off with his abilities near the rim. Beyond that, he is being a lethal three-point shooter this year, and it's not just the catch and shoot shots that I mentioned, but he's pulling up, and he's pulling up from deep, which makes him a threat in the pick and roll, meaning that teams have to step up on him or he can make them pay, which is something he did a lot against the Cavaliers. You add in good head fakes and pump fakes, and it makes him very hard to defend out of the pick and roll, especially when you're running it with someone like Bam Adebayo. And his advanced stats back all of this up as well. As I said earlier, he's having a career year when it comes to his player efficiency rating, as he is currently 13th of all guards in the league. And then you look at other stats such as value over replacement player or box plus minus, and they once again back up Herro, where he is ranked around 20th to 23rd in the entire league when it comes to those categories. And then you add in the fact that players like Tyrese Halliburton and Trae Young are struggling compared to previous years, and it makes sense why this could be a career year for Herro, and this could be the first year where he makes the All-Star game. After all, Herro is someone who has shown constant linear improvement every single year, and I think this is going to be that year where this really pays off for him. And speaking about dominant all-star players, let's talk about Luka Doncic. Now, if you look at Doncic's stats across the year, he doesn't look that special. At least by Luka standards. Of course, he is still averaging nearly 28 and 9, which is absolutely ridiculous. But Luka won his first Player of the Week award just a few weeks ago. That was with him coming back from a wrist injury that caused him to miss about 6 games. Since the month of December started, Luka has been on an absolute tear. In December, he is averaging 31 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists. He's shooting over 52% from the field, and he is shooting almost 43% from 3, which is absolutely insane because Luka doesn't exactly have the best shot profile from 3. He takes a lot of contested shots, and he just takes a lot of 3s in general. If you look at Luka for his entire career, he's not that special by 3-point shooting standards. It's just that he makes them when it counts, and when he gets hot, he gets hot. Now, these stats and gameplay footage is also including his last night performance against the Golden State Warriors, where he had a 40-point triple-double on incredible efficiency. But even if you just look at that 1 week including Luka, he was averaging a near triple-double, and the Mavericks went 3-0. So it's clear that he has just been back ever since December started. Advanced stats of course back up Luka Doncic. While things like his PER isn't as good as they were in years past, if you look at his on-off ratings, his defense, which of course has been under some scrutiny this year, actually stays the exact same for on-off ratings, although I wouldn't fully believe that stat. And of course, the Mavericks offense gets about 6.5 points better when Luka is on the court, and when Luka's on the court, the Dallas Mavericks have the #1 offense in the NBA and one of the best offenses in NBA history. Without Luka, they're still quote-unquote only the 10th best offense in the league, showing that this is just a very deep team, especially compared to years prior. And it's no surprise when you have a #2 like Kyrie Irving to take the pressure off of you, when you have a guy like Klay Thompson, who yes, he hasn't been as good this year compared to other years. Klay is still a near 40% 3-point shooter, and then you have a pick and roll man like Derek Lively, who is always a threat when he's running to the basket. Of course, it is going to be a place for Luka to succeed. And we have been seeing that this year as Luka's been doing his typical thing. He scores incredibly well from all levels of the court. When he is feeling it from 3, he is absolutely feeling it. And surprisingly, Luka is actually a better 3-point shooter when contested compared to when he's on open shots. Although in theory, I would still like to see him take a few more open 3s compared to just forcing it. But like what we saw against the Warriors, when he's feeling it, absolutely nobody can stop him. He's lethal when it comes to that little double step back. He's got a great floater. He does a great job in taking contact and converting the and one, even when he's complaining to the refs a lot. Overall, Luka is just that 3-level threat that just nobody in the league can guard. And then you combine that kind of scoring ability to make him one of the best passers that we have seen in a really long time. And then you add in the targets that I mentioned earlier. And of course, Luka is going to be an offensive weapon designed to give defenses nightmares. One thing that I noticed, and this was against the Warriors, that I absolutely loved them doing with Luka was having him come off of a pin down screen. They did this, I believe, 3 times last night, and every single time it ended up being points for the offense. You have a great man rolling to the rim, it left people wide open, or put Luka in a great spot to either have an and one finish or a step back 3. Every single time the Mavericks ran this action, it gave them points, and it left the Warriors, who are already a really good defensive team, it left them absolutely scrambling. If Jason Kidd and the Mavericks do this more often, I don't see how a team is going to be able to stop Luka Doncic. Well, okay, there might be 2 ways to stop Luka Doncic. First is his defense, which I'll slightly tap on in a second, but the other way of stopping Luka is really just through his usage rate, having him get tired, having him get fatigued, and having him get injured, as these are issues that we've seen with Luka before. Now, something to actually back this up in a good way is that this is Luka's lowest usage rate since his rookie season. It's still at a pretty high rate, around 32%, which is still crazy compared to the rest of the league. But for Luka standards, this is down quite a bit. And something else that I found that's interesting is for the first time in his career, there's actually a pretty significant difference in his splits between wins and losses. In losses, he's playing up to 41 minutes per game. He has a pretty bad defensive rating, and his stats across the board just aren't as good. And that makes sense. In wins, he plays less minutes, his stats are typically better, and his offensive and defensive rating is better as well. But that's what's going to happen in a win. But I can't help but wonder if part of this is due to the fact that Luka is actually doing quote-unquote less. By taking a little bit lesser of a role in the offense and just by doing more off the ball and by not having as high of a usage rate, I wonder if we're actually seeing a better version of Luka Doncic. And then you add in the fact that the Mavericks actually have a slightly better win percentage this year without Luka, and it kind of makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that Luka isn't important to the Mavericks. He is obviously by far and away their MVP, but we are seeing a really good Luka Doncic who's being really elite without having to have the ball in his hands as much, which spells disaster for the rest of the league. And then you add in a pretty deep Dallas team, and I think this team is definitely going to go places, and they might just be on track to prove that last year's finals run wasn't a fluke. So for Luka, my notes on him, also worth mention is he is in the 78th percentile when it comes to ISO scoring, putting him as one of the best guys in the league for that. But my other note is I just want to see more designated plays with Luka. He does well in the ISO and just well in the general flow of the offense, but having him come off of a screen and having that threat from him as a shooter, off the dribble, or from a playmaking standpoint, and I don't know if there are any teams that can fully stop him. Now defensively, the one thing I will say is Luka is still a turnstile. Now Mavericks fans, I get it. He is second in the league at steals per game, and he has 3.3 steals per game, which is pretty ridiculous. His on-off ratings also back him up, where the Mavericks defense is the exact same with him on the court versus off the court. However, just in watching this Warriors game last night, the amount of times where Luka is standing still, expecting his team to rotate or pick up a matchup is pretty ridiculous. Now, I understand that he still has a very high usage rate, and he still just has a lot to do on the offensive end, and maybe he's still having that little bit of like conditioning to get back into, but I just don't believe that Luka is that good of a defender yet. I mean, I say yeah, like he hasn't been in the league for like ever now, but there are certain things that might be overblown, but I still don't think Luka is just that good of a defender. I think Luka could be doing a little bit better on defense, and I think just by looking at some of the clips, that's kind of obvious. However, the man is averaging a near 30-point triple-double on a very, very good true shooting percentage, so I honestly have no complaints for him because it would be very hard for him to give up more points than what he produces per game. So I really don't have a lot to complain. He's also the first in scoring off of turnovers, which is no surprise because he plays the passing lanes really well. He has quick hands on the defensive side, and he's basically guaranteed to get you about 4 points per game just in transition and just off of steals alone. So he is generating some sort of offense through his defense. I will fully admit to that. But it is no surprise that Luka Doncic has won his 14th Player of the Week award, and at this rate, it probably won't be his last for this year. So don't let Luka's averages for the box score fool you. He is still being absolutely elite this year. This is not a down year by any means. He had a slow start and then an injury, but so far for the month of December, he has been doing everything we know him to do and then some, and I would be wary if I had to go up against the Dallas Mavericks anytime this month. So it's very clear that Luka Doncic is an MVP caliber player who is going to be in the running as the year goes on. And likewise in the Eastern Conference, Tyler Herro is going to be an all-star this year, and I have no doubt that he is going to go down as one of the best guard/forwards this year. Guys, if you liked the video, you know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the sub button, and let's try to get 2,000 by the end of the year. But that's it for this one, and I will catch you guys later.